Well, hey, we're in the studio today with Mac, and we're talking about, this is a mouthful here, finding your balance in a polarized world. So first of all, who is this for? Who's this topic for? And then we'll get into what exactly we're talking about.
Yeah, I think it's for believers who have had disunity with maybe people in their own family or people in their small group or leadership team or in their church. And I think we see that today in our world, that we are all in these different camps, and it tends to be, the focus is on how we're different and where we stand on certain issues. And I think it just, personally, it's one of the things that breaks my heart to see how divided we are.
Yeah, we're all supposed to be followers of Jesus, but there's so much polarization because some of these issues these days are difficult. It's hard to know how to view it, how to be biblical about it as followers of Jesus. Race, sexuality, right? I mean, we've got all kinds of issues. Politics.
Yep. Right? We want to love people, but we want to, be truthful. And so I've kind of talked about this, finding your balance.
Yeah.
And the idea is, I grew up playing sports, and coaches would always say, keep your feet. It's important to have balance. And, if you're defending someone on the basketball court and they fake one direction and you commit to that direction, you ended up being on their highlight reel because they go the other direction and you're like, you're all alone out there.
Right.
And I think we can do that. We can overcommit to one direction.
Yeah.
And so I've kind of thought about kind of 4 different values or directions that we tend to polarize.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to put that image up. And this is kind of a balance board. And the idea behind this is all 4 of these things are good.
Yeah, they all matter.
But it's easy to neglect a couple of them in favor of a couple of the other ones, right?
Right.
And that's when we get out of balance.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of my favorite passages is John 8, where this group of religious leaders catch this woman in the act of adultery. Who knows what happened to the man, but they bring the woman to Jesus, and they say they're wanting to trap him. Is he going to have grace for her, or is he going to be really honest? And the honest thing would be, she broke Jewish law. She needs to be put to death. Yeah,
if he ignored grace, if he slid all the way over to truth, then he would just say, put her to death, which is what the Pharisees
she deserved
were saying.
it. But then if he went with grace, then he'd be letting her off the hook and kind of discredit his ministry. And,
but what did he do? He didn't do either one of those things.
Neither one. He bends down. He starts writing on the ground. He stands up and said, "He who is without sin, throw the first stone."
Right.
And they kind of get the point that, oh gosh, none of us are without sin.
Yeah.
And they go, and it's just Jesus and the woman left alone.
Yeah.
In that moment. And I love how Jesus says, where are your condemners? She's like, they're gone. Yeah. And he says, neither do I condemn you. But he doesn't stop there. I think that would be the grace, side of things. But he says, now go and sin no more. Live differently. Like, you're not condemned, but live different. Go and sin no more. And that's the true side. He wants something better for her. He wants something better for us. But it's in the middle. It's in the balance of those 2 things where we find the best that Jesus has for us.
And that's good. That's grace and truth. So where is then that balance of justice and holiness in the story?
Yeah, I think we see that the man who was obviously in the act of adultery with this woman, he's nowhere to be found. It's injustice for this woman, and Jesus sees that. He's concerned about a holiness issue for her. Yeah. And quite honestly, for these Pharisees who are, I think we always think Jesus is against the Pharisees, and he is again. But I think he wants them to repent. I think he wants them to find a place of, coming, humbling themselves, coming into relationship with him.
Right. So let's go back to this board now, and let's break this down here together. So the person who leans too far toward grace and justice, what does that describe that person?
I think they have the mentality that maybe anything goes.
Yeah.
And what happens is when we overcommit that direction, it's about other people and it's about how they feel. Do they feel loved? Do they feel cared for? And maybe that's all that matters. And we kind of let go of maybe the truth that they might need to hear, and areas of holiness where they need to put God first. But we just want to make sure they're loved, and that can be a dangerous place.
Okay, so what about opposite that? Someone who leans toward truth and holiness too much.
So that's the person that says you're going to hell, and it's all about judgment. It's all about what's true. And they have very little mercy for others, very little grace, very little space for people to make mistakes or be human. And so it's hard to relate.
And those people really aren't very effective.
No.
Because saying to somebody you're going to hell isn't usually the way to get them to follow Jesus.
And working on college campuses, we see these folks come on campus to stir up, and try to get people to the Lord through this tactic. And quite honestly, it just makes people upset and
it makes
drives them away.
It makes your job harder.
It does make it more difficult, for sure.
All right, so back to the balance board. What about the person who leans toward justice and truth?
So I would say that's the shame-based activist that's looking at the world and they're angry about the injustice they see. But their way to deal with that is just to put shame on people. And really, they feel like if they can pile guilt and shame, it's kind of opposite of the Pharisee or the legalist that's on the other side. But it's about rights for people. And so I think that pushes people away and doesn't accomplish the purposes of helping shed light on injustice that's happening in the world.
And then opposite that then is that person who leans so far to that grace and holiness side. Describe that person.
So this is a person that says, keep me out of this. And they're just uninvolved in the problems that are going on in the world, and maybe even don't want to hear about it, turn a blind eye to it, and they just keep trudging on in their personal relationship with God.
I know a lot of people who are like that. I think that's the one I tend toward, is I just stay at a safe distance from all the debate rather than really putting myself into it and trying to be a part of the solution in the world.
Right.
So what is right in the middle? If we can get this where we're not so polarized, what is it that Jesus is shooting for us if we can really find that balance when it comes to these four things?
I think it's an idea of unity and caring about what people on the other side, where they're at, and kind of coming to the middle, finding the middle ground. And I heard someone, a pastor, talk about, if we had a Coke can up here and you see it says Coca-Cola and I see the ingredients. Well, we're seeing things from our different perspectives. What would it be like for us to kind of come around and see from the other person's perspective? And I think if we can do that, if we can start to, in humility, say, maybe the side I've committed myself to isn't the right or best place. Why are they concerned, or what's on the other side over here? I think it would help us find that middle ground.
Yeah, that's good. And that's what Jesus prayed for his followers in John 17. So here's what I would encourage you to do with your mentor, with your small group, is take a look at those questions below, take a look at those images below. We'll put those down below so that you can talk about this and say, where do I stand on this balance board? What do I tend to lean toward? And I think if you can recognize that in yourself, then maybe you can come a little bit closer to center where I think Jesus would be, so that we can really be a part of the solution in this world, even though it's getting more and more polarized. And that's the goal. So talk about it with a small group, talk about it with a mentor, and we'll see you in the next video.